Hello everybody, aloha and welcome to this new episode of Touchful Podcast. This one will be about intimacy with self, creating deep, nourishing, beautiful, intimate relationship with self. I want to share a little bit of my story, how I understand it first of all. So what is this intimacy with self? Why it is so important that I build my whole life around it basically, and how I practice what I do to deepen this intimate relationship with oneself. And that is also why over the previous 2 episodes I was kind of like preparing the ground, I feel. So I was explaining to you how I understand intimacy, what it means for me, how I feel it, why I feel that it's so important. And now I want to take, with every episode, I want to take this journey a little bit deeper, a little bit further, starting with intimacy with oneself. And I will also explain in this episode why I start here, why this is a starting point for living a deeply meaningful, true, beautiful, authentic, intimate life. And before we start, as always, let's have our little practice together. I'm putting my hand over my heart, closing my eyes, and I invite you to do the same if it feels good, if it feels right and safe. And I'm taking a breath, feeling my heart, feeling its steady beat, steady rhythm. And I'm allowing my heart to soften, to relax, to open up, to come to life. And from this place, I feel your heart too. So I feel that my heart is connecting to your heart in this very now, in this very moment. That my heart and your heart are together in this. And we are connected. So maybe let's have one deep breath together. Thank you. And what a good way to start recording a podcast about deep, true, intimate, authentic way of living. What a beautiful way to start like this. I want to come back a little bit to the previous episode first, to the definition of intimacy that I shared with you. Intimacy, into me, see, which is an invitation for a deep connection. Intimacy, see into me. Without any masks, without any filters, without any obstacles, without any obstructions. Nothing is hidden, nothing is pretended, nothing tries to be something different than what it already is. Intimacy, see into me. Truly, deeply, invitation for a deep connection. That's how I practice intimacy, that's how I see intimacy, that's how I understand intimacy. Invitation to be seen in truth and in safety. The reason to do this, the reason to practice this, it is not for something. It is not to achieve something. It is not to become enlightened or to become more attractive. It is not even ultimately to have a better life. Because all these are goals or these are achievements. So the way I understand intimacy, and I will be sharing my practices with you today, it is not to achieve something. Though all these things that I said, they are like a byproduct of living a life from this deeply intimate place. But the reason to do it is because it is simply a practice for life. It is a certain way of showing up in life. It is a certain way of living my life, a certain disposition in life. And I really want to start with this disclaimer that it's not to achieve something. It's not to become somebody else. It's not to become better at. It's actually to unbecome everything that you are not. Invitation for a deep connection in truth and in safety. That very often means that you need to unbecome somebody that you are not, somebody that you don't feel is true or authentic. And it starts with the self. That's why today's episode is about this, creating deeply nourishing, beautiful, true, intimate relationship with yourself. Because in my world, in the way I see world, in the way I see life, it all starts with myself. The closer I am to myself, the closer I can be to you. The more true I am to myself, the more true I am to you. I can show up in all my relationships in a truer way. The more connected I am to myself, the more connected I am to you. So I don't need to go anywhere else. All I need to do is to come back more and more to myself. Or I kind of hesitated right now with the word come back. Maybe the word recognize myself would be better here. And this is a deeply intimate practice. And this is something actually that I learned practicing Lomi Lomi and teaching Lomi Lomi. Those of you who don't know what that is, it's a Hawaiian massage or Hawaiian healing practice, Hawaiian type of bodywork that I practice and I teach. And over the years of practicing Lomi and then later sharing it with people on trainings, this is what I learned the most. The closer I am to myself, the closer I am to you. I don't need to go anywhere. So what I practice, and it started in Lomi, and now I practice it in every area of my life, is to be really in me, not even a millimeter out of me. You maybe know this feeling that sometimes you feel that in maybe in certain situations, in certain social context, or with certain people, or in certain experiences, maybe you have this feeling that you are not truly, fully, 100% aligned with yourself. That you almost feel like you're a little bit outside yourself. Sometimes it's a millimeter, you are a millimeter away from truth. And sometimes it's like far, far, far away, 3 kilometers from yourself. That's when you feel that you are really full on playing a role, pretending something, putting on a mask, and this is not true you. That's what I call being outside of you. And I think we all have these experiences in various contexts. I certainly do. When sometimes I put on a mask, I step into being some sort of a persona, and to do that, I feel like I need to almost step out of myself a little bit. Sometimes it's just a millimeter, and sometimes it's really a lot. And this is the first practice that I invite you to, the first contemplation for today, recognizing these moments when you feel that something is a little bit off. And I truly, really deeply believe that we all can recognize this in ourselves. Sometimes it takes practice, like everything in life takes practice, but we can feel it when we are not fully, truly, 100% in us, but something that I call a millimeter from truth, a centimeter from truth. And sometimes to me, this is enough to recognize that I am just a little bit misaligned. I don't even need to try to correct it, but just to recognize like, oh, I'm pretending here a little bit. Like in this social situation, I am just faking it a little bit and trying to be maybe a little bit more funny and bubbly than I feel that I am, because I want to make a good impression. And that recognition itself, it's not good or bad. It's nothing good or bad about me doing this. It's this recognition of this me being a little bit outside of myself. So start with that, examining different situations. And in some situations, it is inevitable. Maybe you have a certain type of profession when you feel that you need to play a certain role, you need to put a certain persona for you to be able to show up in this profession. And there is nothing wrong or right about it. It's just a matter of recognition. When am I stepping into persona? When am I putting on a mask because it feels appropriate, because it feels safer for me? And when I can feel that I am fully, truly, 100% aligned with myself, not even half a millimeter outside of me. And I wonder if you know the flavor of this, because to me, the more I started to examine this in my life, the more I could feel it. These moments of being in and being a little bit outside. A couple of days ago, I was browsing through my old notebooks. I do a lot of journaling. I write almost every day, and I almost never ever read it again. But I was looking for one particular thing that I remember that I wrote down. So I was browsing through one of my notebooks, and I found one of the intentions that I wrote down a long time ago, an intention for myself, intention for my life. And that intention was to have a deeply nourishing, intimate relationship with myself and with the whole world, with nature, with other living beings, with other people, with all life. But I was wise enough to write down that I first want to create this deeply nourishing relationship with myself. Because again, like I said, and I know that I am repeating myself, and sometimes I do it on purpose because I feel that something is so important that I want to say it again and again and again. And sometimes it's only like the third time or the fourth time when I say something that it really lands in you and in me as well, deeper. So like I already said, I really believe that it starts with myself. The more intimate, aligned, in truth I can be with myself, the more I can be with you in such a deep and nourishing way. What if you can only meet other people to the depth that you can meet yourself? You can only meet other people as deeply as you are able to meet yourself. You can only feel the world, touch the world to the depth of your ability to feel yourself and touch yourself with your presence, with your truth, truly, deeply, intimately, in truth and in safety. And I want to share a couple of my practices, things that I do to deepen this connection, this intimate connection with myself. But like I said, it is not about doing these practices to achieve something, to become somebody else. It is a way of life, in a certain vibration, in a certain disposition. And some time ago, I made a decision that to me, this is the only way of life that is really worth living. And this is how I want to live my life. By getting to know myself better, feeling myself deeper, creating this unshakable, true, meaningful relationship first with myself. And from there, building my relationship with the whole world, with other people, with nature, with animals, with plants, with the elements, with the whole of creation, with all life, with my friends, with my family, with my clients, with my students, starting with myself. And it is not the first time I share this. Some of the practices, I feel that I already shared them in a previous season when I was talking a lot about something that I call sitting with my human, or getting to know my human. Or there was this beautiful episode in a previous season, one of my favorite episodes of that season, about connecting with the heart and heart practices. All this is creating and nourishing this intimate relationship that I have with myself. When I feel that I am in me, that I am inside myself. And by myself, I don't mean the persona, the Magdalena. When I just realize it now, when I say that I'm in me, it feels like I am fully immersed in this moment, that I am in love, inside this moment. It feels like being inside love. I remember I once wrote a poem that I am in love, I am inside her, I am in her belly. And this is to me the moment when I recognize the flavor of intimacy, the vibration of intimacy, when I feel in me, but not the persona, not the ego, but in me as deeply in this, deeply here, now, in this, in truth, in safety, no masks, nothing hidden, nothing needs to be different than it is. So, couple of things, and it was actually quite fun and quite interesting for me to try to feel into my life and just ask myself, like, okay, what helps me to create this deeply nourishing, intimate relationship with myself, seeing myself in truth. That was quite fun to start to recognize what I actually do that I feel that supports this. So a couple of things I want to share here with you. And the first one that helps me like nothing else to nourish the intimacy with myself is silence and solitude. These are extremely important for me, and I kind of dare to say that they are extremely important to every human being. We are social species by all means. We need connection with others. We need social interactions. We need other people to thrive. We need physical touch to be healthy. We need connections to be healthy. And at the same time, I so strongly believe that in order to be able to show up in these situations, in these connections, in the deepest and truest way, we first need to cultivate the connection with oneself. Again, coming back to something I already said 3 times, it starts with you building a relationship, unshakable, intimate relationship with yourself. And in order to be able to do that, what we need solitude and silence. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that. So in my case, I literally build my life around it. So I live at this moment of my life, I live alone in quite a remote place with a lot of silence and a lot of solitude. And I feel that this has helped me to build a relationship with myself and with life like never ever before in my life. But I understand it was my choice to live my life like this at this moment, with lots of time alone in a remote place. But I understand that, first of all, this might not be your desire, and second of all, this might not be physically possible for you. You might have a family, a busy job, maybe you live in a big city. So literally, physically, being in solitude and in silence, to the extent that I am able to do that, might not be possible to you, and you might not want it. But what I feel is so important is, first of all, to recognize that silence and solitude are crucial to build this deep, nourishing, intimate relationship with yourself, to meet yourself in truth and in safety, and that you can give it to yourself even in little portions, few minutes here, half an hour there, 10 minutes here. And at the same time, I know, because I tested this, you might be living alone in a very remote place and don't have any silence and solitude. And I know because I've been there. So silence and solitude, it's not literally about living like an hermit somewhere in a remote place, but for example, about creating a moment when you are just with yourself. And it can be 5 minutes, it can be 1 minute, it can be half an hour. And just with yourself, it means that there are no other people around you at this moment. There is no phone, there is no book to read, no TV show to watch, nothing external, no external input. Try to think about it like this, that you want to unplug all the external inputs that you get. So the external inputs are when we talk with other people, can be on like face to face, on a phone, through a communicator, writing things down. It can be external input, it can be when we watch something, when we watch a movie, a TV show, when we listen to music, when we read a book. All this is external input. So to practice deepening the connection with yourself, you need to unplug all the external inputs and take time to be. And yes, it might feel boring, it might feel difficult, it might feel frustrating, and I know all about it because I exposed myself to this extreme amount of silence and solitude. So I know how it feels when you want to run away from yourself. You want to run away from your own thoughts, from your own feelings, from your own discomfort. So you run away into, in my case, watching something on the internet, calling somebody, sending a message to somebody, reading something. And there is nothing wrong with all these in general. This external input is amazing, but I invite you to first contemplate, ask yourself how much time in your life, in a day, you have without any external input. And for some people, it might mean that the only time they have is this time when they drive to work or when they commute to work. And you might choose to listen to a podcast or listen to the radio, or you might choose to do that in silence and see what happens. One of the practices that I feel that it really changed my life and the quality of the relationship that I have with myself is what time in the morning I turn on my phone. So first of all, I stopped having the phone in the bedroom. Maybe it's obvious to you, maybe not. To me, it wasn't. My phone was my alarm clock, so it would always be in my bedroom. It would be the first thing that I touch when I wake up. Just when I say it right now, I don't know, it feels horrifying to me that the first thing that I would touch when I wake up would be my phone. So I just got a good old type alarm clock when I need to wake up at a certain hour. And my phone is not in my bedroom. And when I wake up, sometimes it's quite a long time between the moment when I wake up and the moment I touch my phone. Sometimes it's even a few hours. Like at this moment, I am recording this episode. It's currently 10:05 a.m. I still haven't turned on my phone. I still haven't checked my messages. I turned on my computer. I opened the Word document. I plugged in my microphone, but I still haven't plugged myself in to the world with all the messages and all the emails and social media and all that. And being really conscious about this moment between me waking up and turning on my phone. And by turning on, I mean turning off the flight mode, because I put my phone on a flight mode in the evening. Being really conscious about this time really changed something in me deeply, profoundly, more than I expected, actually. And I don't mean that you should keep your phone on flight mode for hours and hours after you wake up, because again, your life might need you to check your messages or check your emails. But be a little conscious about it. Can you have 5 minutes, 10 minutes from the moment you wake up to the moment you turn the flight mode off in your phone? And can you use this 5-10 minutes to just be, whether it's with yourself or even if maybe you have children and you need to help them to prepare for school, but still, can you just be in this? I used to be a person who was brushing my teeth and checking my phone at the same time. Not anymore. Because I decided that I want to have a beautiful, deeply nourishing, intimate, connected life. And in my case, for me to feel like this, it meant changing the relationship with my phone. And coming back to the silence and solitude, so being mindful with the phone, and when you plug in yourself to your phone is one of the things. And also when you plug yourself out. So there is this moment in the evening when I put my phone in a flight mode. And sometimes it's way later than I would like to, but I don't take my phone to my bedroom, for example. I invite you to contemplate this. Maybe this is not an issue for you at all, or maybe as I speak, you recognize some of your patterns of behavior. When your phone becomes your escape mode, becomes your way of disconnecting from yourself and connecting to the phone, plugging into the phone. Another thing that I started to be really mindful about is when I listen to music and when I don't listen to music. I love music. I love songs that touch me, move me. I have a whole playlist, multiple playlists of songs that make me cry, and songs that remind me about the beauty of life, and songs that I like to dance to and work out to, and all kinds of songs. I love music. I play the violin. Music is a huge part of my life. And at the same time, there is something so sacred, so unbelievably sacred in silence and living in silence, having a moment of silence. There is something so deeply intimate about it. Just think about a moment with certain people, with your best friend maybe, when there is silence between two of you and it's not awkward. Some people say that that's how you recognize that this is a great relationship, a great friendship, when there is silence and it doesn't feel awkward. You don't want to break the silence. You don't want to disturb this moment. It's silence and it feels connected. So think about, remember the moments that you had maybe with your beloved or with your friend, or even sometimes with my clients. I have moments like this. There's something deeply intimate and nourishing in silence, being able to stay in silence with another person and feel safe in this. That is intimate. And it's the same with oneself. Again, it starts with yourself. Are you able to be in silence with yourself and find safety in this? Find comfort in this? To me, silence was so crucial that it was basically almost like a number one reason why I decided to move out from town where I lived and where I had a really good life and move in here where I'm living now in a remote place. I needed the silence. And this is something that many of my clients who visit me here for Lomi sessions or for Lomi trainings, and friends who visit me here when they come from town, this is number one thing that they notice. They say, "Oh my God, it's so silent in here." And I'm like, yeah, I know. Isn't it amazing? Isn't it the most nourishing thing? And again, you might live in a big city with lots of noises. Maybe you have noisy neighbors. So the physical silence might not be available to you as much as it is available to me. But you can start paying attention to where you want to disturb the silence with music. And what would happen if you didn't listen to the radio when you drive to work? If you didn't turn on Spotify the first thing in the morning, but just give yourself a moment in silence. Is it awkward? Is it uncomfortable? Is it boring? What's the invitation there? I remember that a long time ago I made a whole podcast about silence. And it was shortly after I came back from I think it was like 4 days of a retreat in solitude. I was alone for a couple of days with no extra input, no phone, no music, no books, no nothing, just silence. And that was, I think that it was many years ago. And I remember that was the first moment of me meeting silence in such a profound way and noticing how much it changes. It's like you cannot be anywhere else but go inside when there is nothing to watch on a TV, nothing to listen to. Then the only place to go is inside, and that feels intimate with yourself. So silence and solitude. I feel I could make a whole podcast episode just about this, but I hope I managed to give you some little inspirations, some ideas, some hints, something to contemplate on or to look for some patterns in your life and explore silence and solitude in your life. Another thing that I do to create this intimacy with myself, deeply nourishing, intimate, true, safe relationship with myself, is all kinds of what I call embodiment practices. So me landing in my body, connecting to my body through very simple things like what we do at the beginning of the podcast, when I put my hand over my heart and invite you to do the same and feel my heart and take a couple of breaths. This to me is an embodiment practice. And I do this because it helps me feel myself deeper. And I definitely want to show up from a deep and true place when I record these episodes for you. This is my promise to myself and to you, and this is my practice to speak from this deep, true, authentic place when I record. And to do that, I have these little embodiment practices, like putting a hand over my heart. One of the most beautiful things that I like to do is when I wake up in the morning, whether it's on my own or whether it's an alarm clock, just to have a moment before I jump out of the bed, just to have a moment to feel myself, maybe to, again, put my hand on my heart, put a hand on my belly, or just start gently pressing on my whole body while I'm still in bed, while it's still nice and warm, just gently pressing on my body, or just touching my body, or massaging my body, or just keeping a hand on my heart and my belly, taking a couple of breaths and feeling myself as the first thing in the morning. What I love to do and what deepens my relationship with myself as well is all the little simple embodied things, embodied movements. So when I move in order to feel that I move, when I move in order to feel myself. And you can have like a whole separate practice for that with music or in silence. But sometimes what I do is I practice this when I do the laundry, when I take the wet laundry out of the laundry machine to hang it. Somehow I very often take this as an embodiment practice to really feel what I'm doing, to feel my movement, to explore the way my body moves when I do this. Or sometimes I do it when I drive the car, just feeling myself in this, feeling my hand on a driving wheel, feeling my back resting against the seat, feeling my feet moving on the pedals. So all these moments when you drop your awareness from out there, when you, again, it feels like I'm unplugging myself from out there, and I bring the awareness back to in here. And you can have it as a separate practice. It can be a dance, it can be stretching, it can be yoga session, but it can be also something as simple as peeling the potatoes for dinner, and really feeling what you're doing. That creates the connection between you and this moment that you are surrounded by, between you and this moment that you are in. All the heart practices that I do, they create a deep sense of intimacy with myself as well. And I will not be repeating them because there is a whole beautiful separate episode in the previous season about connecting with the heart. And that definitely, to me, is a deeply intimate practice. Another type of practices that I do, and I feel that they create this deep sense of intimacy, are all I call them feminine practices. So all the practices for awakening the feminine energy, embodying the feminine energy, all the practices that are with the womb, or the practices that are with the pelvis, with the pelvic floor. And there are amazing teachers who teach that. So I will not be sharing a lot about it here because I don't feel a specialist in this, but there are some amazing teachers, amazing women that I follow and that I learned from to embody this deep sense of femininity in me. And I feel that this builds a certain level of intimacy, a certain flavor of intimacy with myself. So if you are a female, or if you identify as female, or if you are interested in feminine practices, you can Google that. You can you can see and feel if this is something for you. Another beautiful practice, a deeply nourishing, intimate practice for me, is sitting in front of the mirror and looking myself in the eyes. So again, when we think about creating intimacy with another person, with a friend, or in a romantic relationship, very often one of the first things that comes to our minds, this moment of intimacy, is when we look somebody in the eyes. They say, that eyes are windows to the soul. So when you look somebody in the eyes, it's like you are looking directly into their soul. So maybe you had a moment that felt like this deeply sacred, profoundly intimate moment with your friend, with your romantic partner, with your pet maybe, with your child. And that was because of this eye gazing, looking somebody in the eyes. And this is something that you can do with yourself as well. And this is something that I love to do. And this is something that I still find sometimes challenging, difficult sometimes, moving very often, sitting in front of the mirror and looking myself in the eyes. But for longer than 15 seconds, really creating a whole session around this. Maybe a 10-minute session or a 15-minute session when I just sit and look at myself. And again, how would it make you feel? Is it difficult? Is it easy? Is it boring? Is it exciting? If you have never tried this, I wholeheartedly encourage you to do that, to try this practice. Maybe as something that you do in the morning before you brush your teeth. Just a few minutes, but really a little bit longer than 10 seconds. Give it a minute, give it 2 minutes of you just standing there in the bathroom and looking yourself in the eyes. And you don't even need to say anything to yourself. It doesn't even need to feel in any special way. Just you and you. You looking into your soul. Into me see. Remember? Into me see. Intimacy. So see into you. This is one of the easiest practices of literally practicing intimacy. Into me see. See into your own eyes in the mirror and see what happens when you do it longer than 15 seconds and when you do it more often than just once. Because something starts to happen, something that I am not even able to describe with words, but something starts to happen when you see into you. And the last thing that I want to share that I practice, and it creates this deep sense of intimacy with myself, is asking myself something that I call radically intimate questions. And again, let's start with the analogy between you and some other person. So there are some questions that we ask people, and they are appropriate to ask even a stranger or even somebody who you don't know very well. Maybe your colleague at work, or just, a roommate, or somebody that you just met recently. There are these type of questions that are okay to ask, and they are not considered inappropriate. In fact, we often ask these types of questions to find out more about another person. And at the same time, there are these questions that feel deeply intimate. A question that we would not ask a stranger on a street. A question that we would not ask somebody that we just met half an hour ago. Because they feel so intimate. They feel so personal. They feel so deep that sometimes we are even afraid to ask our beloved or our best friend. And at the same time, if you ever had this type of connection, this type of conversation with somebody, you know that very often these questions are the questions that build extreme levels of intimacy. The questions that invite us to be true, to be vulnerable, maybe to share something that we have never shared before. And these moments between you and somebody else, they create intimacy. Sometimes these deep questions are like a doorway that opens and invites for a deeper, truer, safer connection. And by analogy, you can have that with yourself. You can ask yourself these deep, intimate, vulnerable questions. And I hope that as I speak, you get some ideas of what kind of questions I have in mind. I will give you a couple of examples of questions that I work with recently, but please don't feel limited to just these types of questions. Just try to contemplate and feel into, like, okay, what kind of topic, what kind of question feels like an invitation for deep intimacy if I had to ask my partner, my dear friend. And this might be something that you want to ask yourself. And I do it in a couple of ways. Sometimes I combine it with the mirror practice. So sitting in front of the mirror and talking to myself, asking myself these deep, true, intimate questions. Sometimes I use it as journaling prompts. So I write down my answers. And again, I very rarely read them after. It's not about reading it after, but just putting it down on paper. Sometimes I just talk to myself out loud. But what I feel is that it is helpful to do more than just asking yourself in your mind and answering in your mind, just in your thoughts. So whatever will help you to put the answers out there, whether it's writing them down, speaking to yourself out loud, looking yourself in the eyes in the mirror and sharing your answers with yourself, anything that will feel like putting it out there, taking it out of your mind. I feel that this is what creates this deep sense of intimacy with myself. And these are the questions that I want to meet in something that I call radical honesty. So not giving the answer that I feel is appropriate, not giving the answer that I would like to give. So not talking about how I would like it to be, how I think it should be, but really being radically honest with myself. And I believe that we feel when we are not honest with ourselves. Sometimes we are able to fool everybody around, but not ourselves. I'm going to come back to the very beginning of this episode when I was sharing this feeling of being radically aligned versus being a little bit outside of yourself. It's exactly the same. You know when you are fooling yourself. You deeply, truly in your heart, you know. My heart always knows. Even if my mind sometimes says, I don't know. It's often, in my case, it's often just like an escape mechanism. I don't know because I don't want to see the truth about something. I don't want to meet myself in truth because it feels scary, it feels like too much. So I say, I don't know. But the truth is that I know. The truth is that you know. Deeply in your heart, you know. So contemplate on what kind of these deep, intimate questions you would like to ask yourself, knowing that the invitation here is to answer with radical honesty. One of these questions that I work with a lot recently is asking myself, what do you really want? What do you really want? Just because you want it, just because. What do you really want, Magdalena? If everything was possible, if you could have anything with ease, with all the support, with like all the help and appreciation from all the world and all the people, if everything worked out for you, what would you like to have? What would you like to create? Who would you like to be? What do you really want? And this is sometimes the question when my first initial answer is, I don't know. But I'm like, girl, that's okay. Just take a moment and feel. And I do it a lot in front of the mirror or in journaling. Just, what do you really want? Just because it feels good to want it. And another question similar to this one is, what do you dream about? So I feel that dreams are super intimate. Our deepest desires of heart, our deepest hopes and wishes and dreams are super intimate. I created this challenge for myself last June when for 30 days I was sharing my dreams, my hopes, my wishes, my desires, deep desires of my heart. I was sharing them on my social media, on my private Facebook, for all my friends to see and my family and some of my clients and colleagues and strangers as well, because these were public posts. And I did it partly as an experiment of intimacy and feeling how it feels for me to share something deeply personal. So some of the dreams and desires that I shared were like little whims, that I dream about having this one particular lipstick, But some of the dreams and deep desires of my heart were really, really intimate. And I did it out of experiment to just find out how it makes me feel to share something so intimate with the world. And you don't need to share it with, the whole world to see. You don't need to put it on your social media. But at least ask yourself, what do you dream about? Truly deeply. What are your dreams? The deepest desires of your heart. And allow yourself to hear your answer out loud or writing it down. Another question that feels deeply intimate and that I ask myself recently quite often is, what do you want to make your life about? I'm not quite sure how to translate it. It sounds better in Polish. What kind of meaning you want to create in your life? What you want your life to be about? Because I am a believer that life on itself doesn't have any meaning. It doesn't have any meaning subscribed to it. It's the meaning that we give to life that creates meaning in life. So I ask myself quite often recently, in this radical honesty, with this invitation for radical intimacy, what kind of meaning you want to create in your life? What do you want your life to become about? And these questions, they can go on and on, but I hope that I gave you a little hint of how to work with these radically intimate questions. And later on, if you want to, if it feels good, you can take them to a conversation with another person to deepen the relationship with another person, with your beloved or with your friend. But start with yourself. Before you take yourself out there to all your relationships, to your friends, to your family, to your clients, to your colleagues, start with yourself. Deepening the relationship with yourself. Seeing into yourself. Creating the connection with yourself and within yourself. Recognizing this feeling of being truly in you. Into me, see. And I want to say, to finish this episode, I want to say what I already said. And I feel that it's going to be like a beautiful closure to all this. That remember that we do this because it's a way of life. Not because you are not good enough and you need to do this to become better or deserve something. No, this is a way of life. And it also might not be a way of life for you. You might just listen to this and decide, okay, this is not the way I want to live my life. And that is perfect. Because it is your life and you can do whatever you want with it. That's the beauty of it, and that's the responsibility of it. But if you feel that this invitation for living life intimately, in truth, in safety, if it resonates with you, then remember that you do this because it's a way of living life, a certain disposition, a certain vibration, a certain way of showing up, not because you need to prove something or you need to become better. You will become better at all this, at showing up in life from this deep, true place in you. You will become better as you practice it. But that is like a side effect of just practicing it and living it. And I think I'm going to stop here for now. And I'm going to say thank you for you and spending the moment of your beautiful, amazing, precious life with me. And I would like to finish like we started by connecting our hearts. So I invite you to put your hand over your heart. Close your eyes if it feels safe. And feel your heart. Feel your heart first. Feel yourself first. And from this place of feeling yourself deeply, allow this feeling to expand. so you can feel all that is around you, other people, other beings, and feeling me as well, being here now in this moment with you. I love you dearly, and thank you for you. Thank you for being here, and I will talk to you soon again. Aloha and bye-bye.